Greetings, Jedi, students, seekers, guides, light bringers. We are now on the third of the introductory Zenryokukai videos regarding the Kishibo in its application and training. If you haven't seen the first two videos, now is the time to go back and find them. The first one dealt with just getting used to handling the Kishibo, and the second was dealing with the sliding hands of the extended jab, treating it as both a staff and a spear. Now the Kishibo is said to be sword and spear and staff and shield all at the same time. And that last one is the most important, because as Jedi we are not the offense, we are to be defense, and if needed, counter-offense. But we are first charged with taking care of those in our stead, in our circle, those around us, those that rely on us. And when I say that, I'm not meaning some action movie scene where I just saved 12 orphans from a burning bus and now there's some villain coming to beat them. I just mean when you're out with your friends, your family, you're out at an event, even at work. These are people around you that may not be able to care for themselves. It is not as common to have defensive training to any real extent these days because, you know, we live in the land of lawsuits and guns. But that does not mean that it is not a necessity at times. So we are going to look primarily at the defensive aspects of the Kishibo now. The Kishibo is 42 inches long. It makes a good walking stick. It makes a good defensive tool. However, because of its length, if you don't have it, the techniques that apply to it are easily transferred over to a broomstick, a shovel, piece of PVC, rolled up newspaper, any of these things, a stick laying out in the yard. You know, that's one of the benefits of a non-edged polearm, is that it is pretty easy to reproduce in situations where you might need to. So this, because it is primarily going to be deployed as a walking stick, we're going to deal with blocking from this position. Now you can have this weapon be used as a bit of a deterrent to begin with, where when you bring it up for your block, you bring it up tip first towards the offender's jaw. Typically they'll just lean back, and then you have the ability to get your two-handed grip. You can then slide into here. You can deploy a block, you can flip your hands, and have strategies either way. It's one of the reasons that we worried so much about this is because you may be shifting your hand position rapidly in a situation where you might need it to defend yourself. Now earlier in the instructional videos for the Jedi staff form, we have gone through the 8 directions of strikes and their corresponding blocks. They're very similar for the Kishibo, but we will go through them again just as a quick reminder. We'll go through the strike angles pretty quickly, but the blocks are the more important aspect because that is what keeps you and those around you safe. So starting from our central grip, remember, always try to find the center point of the Kishibo. Make this an exercise that you do all the time. It is designed to bring our minds back to balance. So having a balanced grip is important. So we have our striking patterns of 1 and 2, diagonals from the top down, 3 and 4, horizontals, 5 and 6, diagonals from the bottom up, 7, which is over, 8, which is coming straight up, and then there is 9, the jab. They're very simple. We're just going to run through them one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? And you notice I've got a very wide grip on these. Some of these, especially 6, is very difficult to do with this wide grip. Yes, you can let go of it because it's got enough support on your forearm that this strike is not going to go wild unless you're impacting another weapon, at which point you have other options. But to block these, we're going to intersect these same angles, but we're not going to do them at a complete 90 degrees. Like in most sword fighting and stick fighting forms, when you are taught this strike, you are taught this block at this angle, either with 2 hands, under grip, whatever the case may be. They want you to intersect it at a 90-degree angle. You're here versus this strike. It feels like a waste of motion to me. So that's not how we're going to look at it. We're going to look at this strike, and then we're going to come up with this block. This block will stop this strike before it comes to my head, but it doesn't expose my ribs, it doesn't expose my side. It doesn't put my arms up so far that I can't keep some kind of defense around here. As most people are right-handed and they're going to swing this way, this block actually needs to be done this way, because that an opponent coming at you would be attacking your left with their right. But the premise is still the same. You come up, and you intersect, you keep this arm tight and this arm real tight. Now from here, there are plenty of things you can do. With the impact, you can sweep it up and jab to the face. You can rack down, jab to the ribs. You can rack down and come up to the face. There's plenty of countermeasures that you can do with this, but that's not what we're concerned about right now. Right now, we're concerned about these blocks. So coming from our central position, if someone is coming from here, you're going to want to come up. You see this? You don't want your hand in the middle of this when you're blocking, because you're blocking with the middle of this, and that will break all of your knuckles. If you're using an upside down reverse grip type of thing, that still exposes your side way too much, even at this sharp angle. So you're going to want to keep one arm tight and one arm as tight as possible, and still block to the outside of your frame. This is outside of your frame, but this is too. So you're going to want to come up to here. And then if they're coming from this angle, the most common, you're going to want to come up to here. Now I can see my arm here, but I can see the camera as well. And the camera in this case is my opponent. You don't ever want to do this to where you can't see what you're doing, because that is a good way to get hit in the head. So you want to always make sure that your arm is either below your vision or above your vision, depending on how much you have to move for this. So again, for the 1 and 2, now we're going to go to 3 and 4. That's these. It's the horizontal strikes. Okay? Those can be done at any level. We're doing these in levels to make them easy to remember. But the horizontal strikes can come to the side of your head. So these strikes as much work at angles as they work on zones. If you have a horizontal strike come to the side of your head, this will still block it. If you have a down angle cut that is coming towards your ribs, the block that I'm going to show you for the middles will still block it. So again, you get your hands wide, you don't want to just come here. You want to get the weapon just past your shoulder. You're going to have here, you're going to pull in toward your hip to stabilize this and push out with this so that it has a strong base of impact. Same here. Now this is something that comes across a little differently if you're deploying from a walking stick position. At this point, you're going to want to just come up and put it on your arm as much as you can and absorb as much of the blow as possible before transitioning out. If you can get up and get a handle, that's great. Your elbow's kind of sticking out, so you're going to want this on your arm. If they're coming from here, this grip is immediately, the only difference is my hand was here versus here. But you want to protect your body from your hip to your shoulder, just slightly outside. Okay? And now we got the 5 and the 6. 5 and 6 are not as common because most people aren't swinging from the bottom up. But there are times where that is something you're going to have to block. This could be something as simple as something breaking or an animal coming at you, and you have this. So you still want the blocks to be low and at an angle. They don't want to be a big angle. So you're going to start from here, and if you have your walking stick grip and something is coming this way, you can plant this on the side of your foot, right at your ankle, and push it out. Okay? When you do that, you bend your knee in to act as a form of leverage support. That will defend the vast majority of your leg. If it's coming at your foot, you don't want to do that. But if it's coming at your leg, like the side of your knee, your hip, your thigh, your calf, this will defend pretty much all of that. Now coming from the other direction, since I've got 1 foot forward and that's not the one that's here, you just want to stab it into the ground and push. Okay? Now if you already have your hand in this position, because there's already a situation where you're carrying it, or you're just standing around talking to somebody, and you fidget like most people do, and you're just kind of here doing this, and moving it from hand to hand, whatever. If you're already in this position, you can turn here, and you can turn here. You can strike towards what's coming at you, either direction. You can strike down and plant. Strike down and either plant into the ground or plant right next to the side of your foot. Getting this lower strikes are a very weird misnomer because it starts at your middle level, right? And goes all the way to the ground. Most places you don't cover that. Like a lower block is not going to cover my ankle. It's going to come down to mid-thigh. If I dip into it, I get down to my knee. When you have a weapon, that does become a bit longer, but even this is not designed to block you at ground level. So in a situation where ground level is a thing, you stab it into the ground. If you're indoors where it's a hard tile surface, doing this will probably make it slide out of the way. So you don't want to do that. You're going to want to put it next to your foot. And if it's coming this way and this foot's forward, you put it on the outside, you do this. You can shift your stance to do all kinds of deflections. Just the body shifting can get you out of the way of a lot of things. But the important thing to remember is that these will block all the way to the ground. They'll block all the way to the ceiling if you let them. But you don't usually have to. So now we have the 7 and 8. This is where you're going to want to be here to come up to block an overhead strike. Like just a straight down. You're going to want to come up, but then you're going to want to roll with it. If they're coming forward with their right foot, right, you're going to want to take this and roll it to your right so that it bisects their angle, throws them off balance, things of that nature. We'll get into more of those tactics later. But remember, this is not just a static block. This is not a stand here and beat on my Kishibo. No, this is a catch and roll. And that's going to put them sideways or open them up to making them stop. Now, the slice coming up, again, that's not as common, but you do have the same premise. You're going to want to step back, lean forward a little bit, just a little bit. Step back if you can. If you can't, just lean forward. You want to make sure that this does not impact any of the vitals along your lower center line. Now from here, a jab, that one is a little more difficult because it's a straight line thing and you don't see it as easily. But you can see somebody prepping for one a lot easier because they're going to do stuff like this. And then all of a sudden you're going to see it in this position, ready to jab you. Or reared back, ready to jab or stab you. In that case, you're going to want to come up and strike away. You're going to hold it and you're going to punch above whatever's coming at you. Is that guaranteed to deflect it? No. Will it take it off its target? Yes, for two reasons. One, this turn will take it off target. And two, the impact will redirect its line of force. If it's a knife, you might still get a little bit of graze. If it's a stick, you might still get hit a little bit, but it's not the same thing as taking one to the sternum. Now that one takes a lot more practice because that's a much quicker thing. But this is the 9 blocks that we're learning for these. So that's the important part. It's not so much the block itself as the zone. Okay? So you have your 9 strikes, but then you have your 9 block zones. Always remember when you're doing these blocks, this is just past my shoulder, and other than the knuckles that are holding it, this is outside of my body. It will not hit me. This, outside of my body, will not hit me. Does not require big stretched out movements. You are stronger when you are close to yourself. You can deploy a counter strike quicker when you're close to yourself, because this turns into that. This turns into that.